Hi, Zizaran here with another episode of Path of Exile University. Today we are going to be doing Staying Alive solo with Steelmage. So this is a SSF episode talking about tips and tricks for solo self-found and especially focused on survival. And there is nobody better to join us for that because Steelmage, also called Stallmage over here, hardly ever dies. So thank you so much for joining us today, Steelmage.
Alright, great to be here, Ziz. Professor Ziz, sorry. Yep, so my name is Steelmage. I've been playing hardcore Path of Exile since Invasion League, which is, gosh, who knows how long ago now, 6 years. Playing PoE hardcore ever since. Been playing SSF hardcore, not nearly as long though. When did SSF hardcore release? Like what, 3 years ago? Something like that? 2 years ago?
Feels like 2.
Yeah, not that long. I actually have a little video of the very first time I played Solo Self-Found. Do you want me to? It's like a 5-minute video. I don't know if you want to play it.
Yeah, link it.
Alright, so this is like an introduction to my experience with Solo Self-Found. So I was very excited when SSF first came out. This isn't even official SSF, this is unofficial. Official SSF came out shortly after this.
It would be okay. You wouldn't be able to.
Do you want it with or without volume?
Damage would still be really nice.
It
doesn't fix
we can
the
just have
problem.
it without volume, that's fine. It's just like, very awesome montage music, because I'm a professional.
Okay.
So yeah, this is back in Project PT's OG SSF. Wasn't even like a league or anything, it was unofficial, right? But yeah, just going through my experiences. So that right there, that tends to happen in hardcore. That's a disconnect. Yeah. But I'll just let that play in the background. But yeah. So
The production
obviously, yeah. Nah, dying sucks. Which will be covered in the presentation, because dying unfortunately is a part of hardcore, everybody. And it sucks even more so in SSF because you can't ask your friends for gear. Yeah, you just have to go again.
This is so old
yeah.
school. This is in Paranda's League, which
Yeah, this
I hated.
this crafting right here,
Wow.
this is what we have to look forward to after harvest is removed.
Pure RNG.
Yeah, you just gotta like regal and pray.
So a lot of people have asked about that actually. So you somehow have better RNG than anyone else. Is that something you're going to be sharing with us, or are you keeping that secret?
That is a part of the topic. Yes, that is
Nice.
that is one of the topics.
So if you want to learn how to be luckier, stay tuned.
Yep. But yeah, now watching this old school PoE SSF video. Yeah, the gear's very basic.
It all looks so different. And the worst thing about Paranda's League, it was incredibly bad performance in the first 2 days. I don't think there's ever been as many server issues. Oh my god, look at these tabs.
Yeah, I think actually that's part of the reason why I played this event, because I died repeatedly to... Oh yeah, this is also the first league I started using a Logout Macro, which I will also talk about.
Wait, was that your first 6 thing? Oh no, it was a new account.
New account, yeah. So this is also 4 tabs, if you didn't notice as well. Obviously PoE's changed a lot since then. You now need mini tabs. Well, you don't need them, but
I did Bladeful totems for this.
Yeah, Bladeful used to be very meta back then as well, which is something I will talk about as well. So obviously nothing's changed that much. As you can see, Essence Train is still the best solo self-found build. So, not too much has changed in 3 years. So yeah, that will be talked about as well. The idea that so certain builds require less gear than others. Less gear, better build, generally speaking, for SSF. So that'll be talked about as well.
Fine.
Yeah, again, another example of post harvest crafting. You just got to exalt an item and pray. I will say though, I mean, it's funny because I made this video because all these things that happened to me, I didn't even show the outcome, but all these things that happened to me were so exciting to me at the time. Just using an exalt and landing like 20 res is so exciting in SSF. So I guess that's worth pointing out. You don't have to make perfect gear, or you don't have to have a perfect experience to have a good time in SSF. Just because you're only comparing yourself to yourself, really, right? Your own progression. because you don't have that economic pressure. You can really make your own fun in SSF.
Yeah. And a lot of people might feel like, you know, if you're playing Trade League Softcore, Trade League Hardcore, regardless if you're moving over to Hardcore SSF or Softcore SSF, you can feel that it like makes the game fun for a longer amount of time. Like it like drags out your fun, and small things that might not matter at all in Trade League Softcore, like for example, the Eye of Chayula might be a big deal to you. Like say you're going a low life build, that could be a huge deal actually finding that item. So if
Yeah.
you're getting bored at the start of the league, maybe consider trying out Solo Self Fun or Solo Self Fun Hardcore.
Yeah.
Twinned Abyss, nice.
I know, that's the clip. The clip is me dropping 2 maps. Yeah. And obviously finishing off with a super rippy boss kill at the time. These used to be, this used to be in-game content. This is peak performance right here. But yeah.
Uber Elder, move out of the way.
Yeah. No Elder, no Shaper back then. No Guardians. These used to be, this and Core Malachi were
Yeah.
the end-game bosses.
I remember Rangarn being the only person on hardcore for a while that could kill a core Malachi. Cyclone build, freeze immune.
Yeah. But yeah, good times, good times. I just wanted to show that video off because to me, this is my first league playing SSF, and I really, really, really enjoyed it. And the fact that I made this cheesy video, it'd be cheesier with the music, is yeah, it goes to show you my experience with SSF and why I still play it today.
Awesome. I'll link that in chat for those of you who want that as well. Let's see. Awesome. Thank you for sharing that with us. All right, we have the presentation.
All right.
We are ready. I'll just I'll just move one slide at a time when you're ready.
Yeah. There's not too many slides, so we'll just so we'll move on. Slide number 2. Okay, so first things first, and this is crucial, choosing your build. So a good SSF build needs less gear. What does this mean? Now, this means that you're not going to be able to play the same builds you play in Trade League. Generally speaking, as an example, bow builds are wonders. These builds require a lot more gear. Therefore, they are typically not the best starting build. Now, you can still do them. You know, we saw Mathel recently playing a Wonder in the Gauntlet. Bow builds can be good. They're just harder to do. You know, Toxic Rain, etc. Bleed Bow. But generally speaking, the best SSF builds and the builds that I would recommend to anyone trying out SSF for the first time, hardcore or softcore, are going to be builds that require less gear. So these are going to be, this means you're going to want just like life, res, super basic gear. You can do CR, but again, that's going to be more difficult for your first time. So the build I was playing as my first SSF build, and again, I joked about it, but it is still actually a really good build, is Essence Train Contagion. Now, this is a good build because if you look at the gear, it's just generic life res gear. There's nothing too difficult to get, which is perfect because obviously we're not going to have any gear now that Harvest is being removed.
F.
Yep, F. So yeah, some example builds: Summoner, Miner, Essence Train Contagion. Obviously, Zizaran's YouTube is filled with league starters that require very little gear, so they're perfect choices to start in SSF. Now, obviously, to expand on that more, obviously, it does mean a lot of the SSF starter builds are the more meta builds. They are the more popular builds. I would still recommend it, even if you don't like playing a Summoner because it's Dan's game, or if you don't like playing a Miner because, you know, it's strong, right? I mean, I think that's a perfect reason to play those builds. Now, that doesn't mean you can't play interesting builds in SSF, you know, like, you know, small, you know, different builds. It just means that if you do that, you're either going to have a harder time or you're better off playing it as your second or third character. You shouldn't necessarily start with that build because you're going to have literally no gear, right? You're going to have to play these builds in naked. And it's going to be really difficult to do like Impale Tornado Shot if you don't have, you know, a nice Watcher's Eye, a 6-link 500 DPS bow, things like that, right? Talking about the build itself, offense and defense. Now this has been covered I think you might have talked with maybe Noogie about this, about making a good character for especially for hardcore.
Yeah.
So maybe you can talk about this a bit as well. But specifically for SSF, it's extremely important to if we're talking about SSF hardcore, it's extremely important to prioritize defense. Obviously, offense is a form of defense if you can kill things before they can kill you. But you got to as Noogie says, you got to build some defense, right?
You gotta know how to build defense. That's it.
Yeah. So
Yeah,
yeah.
and especially having a multi-layered defense. You'll see, especially on Soul Self on Hardcore, and even more so when you're like prioritizing bosses, you'll see a lot of people stack things like, you'll see people playing ED doing block and dodge, and then high evasion on top of that, plus an already like very, very high like raw health pool. So multi-layered defenses is very important.
Yeah. I think I mentioned this later, but I'll mention it now anyway. The build you choose is going to depend upon what you want to achieve in solo self-found. So if you are playing with the intent of killing Uber Elder, obviously you're going to need a build that's capable of doing that. But if you just want to kill Katava, right? Because that's the thing. You don't necessarily have to kill every single boss, do every single thing, hit level 100, do 40 out of 40. You don't have to do all these things. If your goal is just to beat Katava, then the build you play will be different, obviously, than a build that wants to do Uber Elder or Uber at Ziri. So yeah. All right, we can go to the next slide now. All right. So this is probably a big topic that I'll be talking about.
Nice.
Now specifically, as you can see, Rise QT in the corner, 6th link when. The build you pick, if your build needs a 6th link, like Archmage, if your build needs a 6th link, this is bad. This is a bad thing in solo self-found because a 6th link is not guaranteed. I've hit level 100 multiple times on a 5 link. Ideally, the best SSF builds aren't going to require a 6th link because it's by no means guaranteed. Even if you have a ton of playtime, you're still not guaranteed to get it. And obviously, Rise QT's experienced this more than a few times, as you can see.
Is this going to be on the test?
Yeah, of course. There'll be a massive test at the end with no reward because there is no test. I lied. All right. So yeah. So this goes into the topic of what does RNG mean in SSF. So what is RNG? RNG is random. RNG is unforgiving. RNG, you just have to deal with it, right? Now, you'll see a lot of the time that people say, what is stream RNG? I see Ziz gets a 6th link. I see Rise gets a Calm Heart. I see I don't get an Elder Axe. I get something else that's equally awesome, probably. All that means is you're going to have good things happen to you. You're going to have bad things happen to you. So, for example, I had a day 1 6th link, but I never got my Elder Siege Axe. So despite trying for a very long time, I want to say 50 hours of grinding, I never got my Elder Axe, despite the fact that I should have had it. But I got a day 1 6th link, right? So you take the good with the bad in SSF. You're going to have good things, you're going to have bad things. You try not to rely too much on RNG heavy things, because the more things you need to get your build going, the harder it is the more layers of RNG you're going to have to deal with. So, that's why I go back to, if you go back to the build section, that's exactly why a good build requires less gear, right? So you have to deal with less RNG. So the less RNG you need, the better the run's going to go. Just, as Darky said, when he was talking about my last raid Glad, he mentioned actually he considered the build, but didn't do it because of that Elder Axe RNG. So that was one layer too much for that build to be viable for him. Which is why his build was so good, right? Because his build only needed a 5 link all the way to the very last day.
Yeah, and this is why we see like league starters like Well-Tell Dead Spellslinger, Essence Drain, and things like that are so insanely popular, and not builds that, well, I need a Shavs, I need a Blessing from Chayula, stuff like that.
Exactly. Just talking about some basic gearing, obviously. Flasks. The reason I have this one here is it's very easy to to not prioritize them or to leave them for a long time. But flasks are a very big deal. Getting ailment avoidance on your flasks is something that should be done ASAP, like within 5 hours. You should have, your warding, adrenaline, staunching, grounding heat. You should have all these ailment immunity flasks rolled as soon as possible. You can do this using the bestiary. I know this has been covered before by other professors, right? Other teachers, but just going to reiterate on that again because it's so important. Your flasks. The flasks are your core survivability early on. Again, you don't have gear, right? You don't have those layers. The only layer you really have early on, typically, is flasks. Flasks do carry early game really hard. Filter. Now, filter's a big one. I actually have some things here. Let me read them out. So yeah, filters are a useful tool in SSF at all stages in the game. If you need specific upgrades, you can update your filter to ensure you're picking up what you need. So, for example, if I'm playing a spellcaster, I can highlight rare weapon bases such as scepters and wands. Because remember, without harvest, we're not going to be able to pick up like an imbued wand off the vendor and create 666, T2 wand right off the bat with harvest. You're going to need to actually identify or craft the item and just settle for what you get, right? And I'll mention settling a lot in this presentation because you're not going to be able to get the best gear in SSF. That's just something you got to deal with. You're going to have to settle.
Unless you're Steelmage.
No, I settle heaps. Is because you're gonna have to just deal with the hand you're given essentially. But yeah, filters are a good way to ensure that you are getting something usable. Like I said, if you're playing Essence Strain build, you might want to choose to before you get multi-mod, of course, you might want to choose to identify all wands. See if you can get something usable. So yeah, you'll typically have multiple filter strictness levels for leveling, early game, early mapping, and end game mapping, where you'll probably hide most things. Target farming. Now, target farming, this is if you need certain pieces of gear that are going to be hard to get, this is where target farming comes in handy. Obviously, we have seen Kavarusku. He plays low life a lot in SSF, and the way he does this is through target farming divination cards. So he will farm Scriptorium, I believe it is. Now, Scriptorium is a map that has the Shavron boss, which drops the Shavron divination card. Now, if you target farm that map, if you set up your atlas in such a way that you're getting a lot of this map, which I guess Carb might even mention in his atlas talk, maybe. But anyway, you can essentially spend your time target farming that map in order to get a Shavron's. So this goes for anything you need in SSF. So if there's, for example, if you need face breakers, if it's attainable, if it's farmable, you'll be able to farm face breakers now thanks to the new face breaker divination card coming in heist. If somebody makes an alteration div card, you'll be able to target farm alterations. Waiting on that one for many years now. But yeah, target farming is a core part of what you do in SSF. It's how you get your end game upgrades. It's how you get your if you want to like play other kinds of builds, that's how you do it.
Do you know, I can make one more div card. Is that what I should make, Steel? Just a card that gives 20 ults?
Yes, please. Now, ults
Or
are actually
Impulsa.
fun. Yeah. Now, funnily enough, and I'll mention this in the crafting section, but ults do end up being a very big deal in SSF. The thing you need to be the most careful spending, because they take a very long time to farm, and you spend them very, very quick, and you need literally thousands of them. So ults do end up being, in some cases, more valuable than exalts. So you can have multiple exalts that sit there do nothing, and you can have 0 ults permanently because you need so many of them.
Yeah, it's very true.
Oh yeah.
And like Shavs and Comes Hard are also good examples of like the things that are super easy to target farm, as well as we have several 6-link divination cards like Dapper Prodigy. It's for some reason probably the best drop rate on any good divination card in the game, which drops from Residence.
Yeah, I was saying, it almost feels like it's bugged, because there's a similar divination card, Chains That Bind, that it's still farmable, but it's kind of reasonable. It actually takes a significant amount of time to farm. but compare
I
that to the
think it
Dapper
is
Prodigy
slightly
card.
more common too, but it's like the fact that it's 11 cards makes it a bit more rare. But then you have like the 6 thing Astral Play, like that thing is hell to farm.
Yeah. All right, and then the last thing to discuss here is gear checks and milestones. So this is things like the gear you'll need to progress to certain stages of the game. So, for example, obviously, if you're beating something like, if you're just getting to like Katava, just getting to early maps, you really only need basic flasks. You know, not even maybe like 3k life and capped res, right? There's very little gear requirements to get to maps. However, when you're progressing to yellow maps, there's quite a you probably want like a 5 link by now, or at least have a powerful build so you're you're cruising on the 4 link. But yeah, the getting to yellow maps is quite a hurdle, and very often what I see, and I mean you'll see this in the Awakener event at the start of the league, but you'll see people rushing red maps. I think this is bad. Especially if you're not trying to race. I think you can quite comfortably farm a lot of gear very safely in solo self and hardcore in white maps, because there's really no massive upside to doing red maps that early necessarily, unless you're planning on farming Awakener. But even then, if you want to do it safely in SSF hardcore, you're going to want to make sure your gear's ready. So I always prioritize gearing over experience, which is, I mean, and that actually still works for me even as a racer, because that means I do end up staying alive more than people who rush those red maps. So even as a racer, it's not a bad idea to stay in lower tier maps.
Yeah.
And especially if this is your first time, or if you have less experience surviving in hardcore SSF, I highly recommend farming low tier maps for a very long time.
Yeah, and
Only-
there's a big difference there between, like, you'll see, for example, Steelmage and Etup and Alkaiser will always, like, they'll never usually be in like top 5, top 10, like super early. They usually be going at a more slow and steady pace, focused really hard on not dying. And then if you do have somebody like Tai Killer, Exile, or somebody that like rushes up or and like is ahead the entire time, then it's very hard for the players that are like getting everything ready to like beat them afterwards. But very often the people that are rushing, yeah, and Lily, very often the people that are rushing will die. And I'd say more on average that the players like Steelmage and Etup, etc., do end up winning the race, because they're just like this slow wrecking ball that just like comes in.
Yeah, I always like to say, if you spend that time earlier, you do get some of it back. You don't get all of it back. It is better to just go forward progression, right? Which is the Havoc strat, just go forward. But you do get some of that time if you stay back, gear up, get gem levels with XP, all that kind of stuff. You do get some of that time back. It's not a complete loss.
That's
And
true.
obviously, like I said, if you're not as experienced as someone like Havoc, who's been playing PoE since its inception, then I think you get a lot of advantage staying early on. I think you're
Yeah.
much more likely to survive.
His death was hilarious. That was actually so good.
The typing one
Yeah,
with the macro, yeah.
it was so good.
All right. Speaking of dying and staying alive, next slide.
Let's do it. Let's see there. I'm surprised you didn't go white people sad.
Twitch chat loves death, apparently.
True.
Yeah.
Did you
So,
draw that emote yourself?
Yeah, I did.
That's amazing.
It didn't look so good when it wasn't so wide. I'll just say that now. It looks better wide for some reason.
That's excellent. I'm very impressed.
All right. So hardcore obviously has permadeath. How do you deal with it? So I think most hardcore players go through this, where their first time, or the first few times, or a lot actually, early on, they die repeatedly. We're gonna die. It's just part of hardcore. You're gonna die a lot. Obviously, I die a lot less these days, but early on, you're gonna. I think I remember. So my first proper league was Invasion Hardcore. This is famously known as a league that was insanely rippy. I uninstalled Path of Exile for the first time.
Me too.
Back in Invasion. Yeah.
Same.
I spent a week dying repeatedly. And yeah, I quit. But I came back, survived, and when I did survive, when I actually lived through it, That right there is why I kept playing hardcore.
What league did you
Surviving
come back
hardcore.
at? I think I came back at Beyond.
Oh, I came back in Invasion. But
Oh, okay.
there was a delay. There was definitely a delay. Yeah.
Ah.
So yeah. No, but I find the best way is to just reroll. Just reroll. That's the first thing you should do. Even if, like, you definitely feel the death a lot more, the permanence of the loss, if you don't reroll straight away. So I always recommend rerolling straight away. If you don't reroll straight away, you're just gonna sit there and mull it over, and it's just gonna feel shitty. And maybe
Yep.
you won't, maybe you'll just switch to SC. Maybe you'll uninstall PoE. Bad things happen. It's always good to reroll instantly. That's why you'll see Ziz and myself and a lot of other hardcore streamers, we reroll straight away, even if we're not necessarily going to be on for very long. We'll always reroll
Yeah,
because
even if all you do is get to Merveil or Val Oversoul, it's very demotivating to have to like start again, and you don't even have, like, you've just woken up for the day, you're starting on the beach, and you're like, oh, like I only like quit if I'm like dead tired.
Yeah. So going on from that, goal making was also a part of how I deal with that. Obviously, in the last event I had a really, really bad death. I died to a Drox Fist, and something that helped me reroll, obviously rerolling rerolling as soon as possible, as soon as I was ready, but also changing my goals helped here. So obviously, my goal was rank 1, but I died. Rank 1 was no longer obtainable, so changing my goal helped here a lot as well.
Oh, the hell? Leaked? Interesting. Sir? Internet mage? You rerolled your call? It just says he's connecting. Discord is down in Australia. I'm gonna try disconnecting from the call, and if Steelmage disconnects too, it should do a new waypoint, maybe somewhere in Singapore or something. Try DCing from the call, Steelmage. Okay, and then you initiate the new call. Steelmage fake DC to get out of class? Classic? Oh no, no, no. But yeah, try initiating the call. Confirm Discord went down same time? Yeah, I know. Discord is downloading new updates. Okay, well, again, like, I'll just keep stalling while Steelmage is gone. But, like, obviously there's like 95% play softcore, right? A lot of people don't really want to deal with losing their characters. However, a lot of the players who are playing on softcore might be getting bored even a month into the league, 2 months into the league, and stuff like that. So when you start getting bored, honestly, like, checking out hardcore can be a lot of fun in the second league. And if you don't want to play solo self-fun, like, you don't want a fresh start, do remember that you can switch over your currency. Like, say you were playing Harvest Softcore Trade League, you can switch your currency over to Harvest Hardcore Trade League. For those of you who don't know how to do this, or are worried that it's like bannable or anything like that, and open now the official Path of Exile forums. And if you go all the way to the bottom, you'll say standard to hardcore trading, warning unsafe. So you can get scammed while doing this, right? Because it's not like it's an in-game supported feature. The way this works is you have one guy on hardcore trade league saying like, yeah, I will sell you exalts on hardcore for exalts on softcore. But it'll be at a worse ratio. So they'll just be swapping back and forth and gaining a little bit each trade. Now, most of these people, like this guy, for example, have been doing it so long that they're already making enough currency by doing it, and there's no need for them to scam you, right? Want to trade my hardcore harvest exalts for your hardcore softcore exalts, 1 to 1.4. Read messages. I don't have any. It's all like privately shit. So if you don't want to like start over from scratch, that is an option, as well, and it's like not bannable. The only time it would be bannable is if somebody offers you like 67,000 exalts on permastandard for 3 chaos on highest hardcore. That would be bannable. You're only allowed to like trade between leagues that have like been awake the same time. Maybe Vero. So yeah, they have to have been like start the same time. So that's nice that you do have that option. But yeah, like we said, like re-rolling instantly helps a lot with like alleviating the pain. And I would say it feels like a lot of players that have been like trying hardcore or hardcore SSF, coming from softcore, said that they found it like really exciting and something to do a bit into the league. Maybe not at league start, because then you're exploring new content. Maybe your favorite build was nerfed and you're not that comfortable with everything. But it can be like a new refreshing experience where like you still get to play the same game, and maybe there's not that many other games that you're excited about, because as much as we complain about PoE, it is a pretty good game and does have a lot of cool things. Yeah, so Steelmage is currently dead. Steelmage died. That's very sad. But we're just waiting until he comes back and then stalling a little bit. Yo, what's up? Oh, I can't do the voice call on WhatsApp. Very cool presentation, though. I like the hand-drawn pictures. Are you still out? It's Discord. It's happening to me, too. Yeah. It's a bad time. Yeah, I wonder. Vero, could you set us up with a fast Zoom call? I think that would work. Let's do that. Let's actually do a Zoom call. I don't know how to set those up, but I think Vero does. Says, how can you read the chat? So normally you let your eyes hover over some text, and you look at the text, then your brain starts like interpreting it, and then you read out the numbers. Is that something you'd be able to set up, Vero? Let us in on the call. Maybe next semester, maybe we'll have Gucci as a teacher for something. We are going to be expanding these and like working more on them. Next time I am going to have presentations for all of my sessions as well. I didn't have time for this one, so all of mine I've just been doing like off the cuff. But we will be doing this every single league starting them earlier and doing more calls. Yeah, they're all on YouTube. Alk for melee, yeah, if he wants to, we'll talk. Wait, Vero, did you hear me? Oh, we'll be doing these every session. Get Crypt just cause? That'd be fun. We'd have a university episode about flexing with like altars on standard. Have him show off all of them. That would actually be pretty cool. Check Discord, don't show. Open this. Oh, that crangled my webcam.
Will this work? Can you hear me?
Yes. This is perfect.
Okay.
Let's see, but you need to leave so I can full screen him.
I don't know if... Hold on.
Oh. Will it cancel the call?
Maybe. Let me try real quick. If not, if it does, I'll have you set it up, okay?
Wait. You don't need to. I can pin him to my main screen.
Okay. Can you talk, Steel?
Wait, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah, we can. Okay, we're good. I'm gonna mute
Okay,
it.
cool.
Go for it.
Okay, wait. Let me try doing studio mode. Oh yeah, that's window capture. Let me switch windows.
It's loud.
Oh, are you loud? I don't... Oh, maybe I can turn you down. Hold on. before we start here. Try talking?
Hello.
Okay, I think that should be fine for Twitch chat. Alright, we good? Let me open Twitch chat on a different screen here.
How do I turn you down?
Oh, am I loud? I just lowered the entire sound on my Firefox.
Yeah, I'm gonna do that now. Okay.
Awesome.
Are we good now?
Yeah, we've re-rolled the call.
Oh my gosh.
See, we
yeah,
died, but instantly back at it.
yeah, we rerolled with a new build Zoom this time.
Yeah.
Yeah, Discord's just dead for me now. This is like
Australia problems.
Yeah, I don't know. All right, beautiful. Okay. Cool.
Awesome.
All right. Where was I? Goal making. So, okay. And I think I said something about setting realistic expectations in hardcore. Yeah. Because obviously, you are going to obviously, depending on your experience, struggle with hardcore. But I always say everyone can play hardcore because everyone can kill Hillock. And if your goal is to kill Hillock, then you can achieve what you want in hardcore, right? So setting realistic expectations, setting realistic goals is really big thing in hardcore. So like I said, if your goal is Kitava, Act 10 Kitava, that might be hard for people. That might be a really hard goal, right? That could be very difficult, and that's fine. Like if that's your goal and that's what you set it to be, you'll still have a ton of fun just going for that goal. You don't necessarily need to aim for the moon, right? You don't need to aim for Uber Elder in your first hardcore league. You can just aim for whatever goal you think is reasonable for you, whatever you think you'll have fun with. But that being said, is hardcore right for you in the first place, right? Now, specifically SSF hardcore. Now, it's very time consuming, so this is probably not the best. Now, you can still play SSF hardcore if you have limited time, but it is time consuming. Dying sets you back significantly. You might be limited by your connection, your internet connection. As you can see, I can barely start a Discord call, apparently. So yeah, maybe I should reevaluate hardcore for me. But yeah, no, you need to decide whether or not hardcore SSF is going to be right for you, because it's not necessarily for everybody, and that's totally fine. I always say, solo self and softcore is fine too. Like that, you can still have the same solo self and experience where you have to juggle your currency, you have to gear up builds over a longer period of time, and you can still do it in SC. There are plenty of very good SSF softcore gamers, like Manny, for example, who's collected almost every single unique in the entire game in a single league, which just blows my mind. He has 200 exalts solo self-found. Yeah, absolutely mind-boggling.
Yeah.
But yeah, you can have a lot of fun in softcore SSF too. You don't have to play hardcore.
And a quick thing worth mentioning, I always get a lot of players asking, like, why do we play hardcore? Is there, do we get more loot? Do we get more experience? Is there more damage? There's nothing. There's no difference at all. It's the same amount of drops. It's the same amount of everything. There's literally no difference except that when your life reaches 0, you lose that character.
Yeah. Alrighty. So, speaking of hardcore, moving on to the next slide.
Yep. I didn't know you were an artist.
Alright, risk management, boys. Risk management. So this is a big part about hardcore. This is, in fact, I would argue this slide represents who I am as a player, right? This is all I do. This is really all I do. Dan's a god at build making. This is a god at rerolling. Quinn's a god at ZDPS. I'm pretty good at risk management. I'm sorry. So yeah, this is what I'm good at: risk management. Okay, risk management is the one thing I can say I'm actually good at. So identifying risks. So this is now this is actually really complicated. I could almost do an entire presentation just on identifying risks. Identifying risks. This means if something bullshit happens to you and you die, right, and you think it's a one shot, this is where you really break it down. This is where you say, what just happened? how can I identify it and how can I avoid it in the future, right? You know, so a good example of this would be Revenants. This is an example I use a lot. Revenants have a few key identifiers because obviously we know they're rippy, right? Everybody, you know, especially these days, because we've seen a few people die to
Especially
them.
me.
I don't think I was going to say anything.
Killed me more than anything now.
Yeah, no, it's extremely dangerous because of corpse detonating effects, right? Corpse detonation is extremely dangerous. What are our revenants? So revenants are it's a good question, right?
Spider. Scorpion
The
thing.
spiders, they have this skittering noise where they fire these lightning bolts in like an arc, and they revive skeletons, and when they die, they then explode, dealing a lot of damage, right? And these are based of corpse life, so they are modified by things like monster life. They are modified by things like monster damage. They kill lots of hardcore characters. They're very easy to die to. Now, the way I personally identify these, there's a few ways to do it. Obviously, the first method is if you see them. Now, if you know they're on the map, you know there'll be more, you know to play differently. You don't play the same on a map with Revenants as you do another map, okay? That's big. You don't, like, obviously, generally speaking, in fact, Chris Wilson refers to it like this. This is where the infamous, like, playing TV while you play PoE, watching TV while you play PoE quote comes from. Where he says that most of the time in Path of Exile, you can just chill. You can have Twitch TV / Zizaran on in the background. You can listen. You can, you know, laugh if he rips and just play the game yourself and have fun, right? But every now and then, there's these moments, right? These tense moments where, you know, let's say Revenants are on the screen and you have to play differently. Sounds bad. Yeah, it feels bad.
I don't think there's much we can do about it.
Yeah. I mean, I'll see if Discord's up yet. Nah, Discord's fucked. Okay, I'll just talk slower, maybe, and see if that helps. It's fine, keep going. I'll just talk a little slower. So, anyway. If you identify, the key is you have to play differently when there's something dangerous happening versus when you're just playing normally. Because I'm not necessarily saying you should play super careful all the time, but if you play carefully when you identify a key risk, that'll keep you alive, right? So, like I said, if you see Revenants in the map, you'll know there's more. If you hear Revenants, again, they make that attack when they fire, or if you see the what do you call it? If you see the skeletons, right? Because they're a special mob. You don't just see them normally. If you see the skeletons, you know when you kill them, they're gonna blow up. So just, you know, be careful. You know, you stop what you're doing, kill them, wait for the bombs to go off, then proceed, or just skip them altogether and never backtrack. A lot of people die to Revenants because they backtrack after killing the skeletons. So yeah, there's many examples of this. Like I said, you could pretty much write a book on all the risks in PoE. Things like Martyr, as an example with Martyr. If you know there's ghosts on the map, you'll know that there's more ghosts on the map because these mechanics tend to spawn in clusters. So if you see one ghost, you'll have 2 or 3 extra ghosts on the map. Same with Thromboxes as an example. So they spawn in groups. If you hear them, if you hear the ghost noise, if you see the ghost flame, or if you see the red circle that spawns near martyrs, because that's how they touch mobs nearby to make them go boom.
That's actually a good idea for next semester, Steel. If you're done, you and me could make like a big list of pretty much every like the notorious deaths, like DD, everything, and cover it and how to avoid it better. That would be a pretty cool episode for a lot of people.
Yeah, because there's so many rippy things. But yeah, the key is identifying those risks. So don't necessarily. Sometimes there is bullshit in PoE. Sometimes there is genuine bullshit deaths. I could almost show you one actually. Hang on, maybe I can show you one. But yeah, sometimes there's actual bullshit deaths.
There was a very wise man called Steelmage that said, especially at league starts, he lets another streamer called Zizaran beta test the league mechanic for him and avoids doing it because if Zizaran is alive, then it's fine. Because I always do the league mechanic at league start, pretty much. I was avoiding it in Harvest, and then I was like, oh sweet, nobody's dying to Harvest. Then I do a full field of tier 2, so I'm like, brap. Great.
Yeah. Yeah, that is how new mechanics tend to go, unfortunately. Ooh.
Yeah, a lot of the
nice.
time, especially if you are playing hardcore and maybe you're currently playing software and you decide, you know what, I'm gonna try hardcore at league start. DDD don't always like test their game or balance the game the best. So sometimes there will be things like the agony crawlers or some of the barrage things that will just delete your character, and that'll normally be fixed once like there's a few like big deaths, like Dan dying to it on the ladder or something. Then they will fix it, but that can take anywhere from 3 days to 2 weeks.
Yeah. Oh yeah, I think Discord's fixed for me. Should I call you or you call me?
Yeah, I'll call you. Give me 1 second. I just wanna. There. Okay. Let me end this call. How do I? Hello?
There
Hello?
we go. We good?
Awesome. Yeah.
Oh, so much better.
Yeah. Do the thing.
Yep.
Yep.
Turn on camera. Poggers. Make steel ladder. I mean, I can just talk closer to the thing.
There.
Oh, maybe... Okay,
Much better.
cool.
That was like so weird. We had like a weird crackling and annoying sound on Zoom.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, no, I wanted to try to boot Discord up, so we're good now. Yay.
Awesome.
All
What were we
right.
talking about?
So,
Oh yeah,
now
link
we're
mechanics and yeah, they are
Right.
very, very insane on day one. Also, like sometimes there's a little bit more instability. Not really lately, but yeah.
Yeah. So, moving on to map rolling. Now, this is everything I say during this presentation, by the way, is just my take, obviously, my opinion. But my opinion about map rolling is a bit different to show the clip. Oh yeah, I'll show the clip of a bullshit death. Hang on, I can link it in
link it on
Discord now.
Steelmage. Link it in the
Yeah, there you go. So this is an example. Now this was just after a hot fix, so it wasn't a patch. It was like a hot fix. And this is a genuine bullshit death, but these are quite rare. So you can see Shaper, having a good time. Didn't realize it was a hot fix, so he beams me, then teleports next to me, and I'm dead. So it turns out the animation for the beam and the slam got swapped around. So it's very rare this happens, but every now and then, that's genuine bullshit, but it's quite rare. Okay, bad code. Yeah, quite rare. Okay, quite rare, but yeah, because the identifying the risk there was quite difficult to do. I could have had a build that could tank the slam, but that was one build that could not tank the slam. I normally don't play builds that can't tank the slam, but that is one of them. So yeah, anyway, moving on from identifying risks to map rolling. Now, map rolling is kind of like a choose your own difficulty thing, right? Now, it depends on the kind of player you are, the kind of build you're playing, whether or not you're willing to die over a map roll. But map rolling is a big part about keeping your character alive. As you can imagine, running a map with 0 mods on it is a lot easier than rolling a map with 8 mods on it.
Yeah.
So, map rolling is a big part about how you can keep your character alive. If you are worried about dying, don't run rippy map mods. You can save your character for literally a scour and an alchemy. It's just not worth dying for. Even though it does kind of suck to spend the currency, and you will feel better about not rolling the map. If you do die, you'll feel so bad that it's just not worth it. So it's totally up to you. Me personally, there's really not that much downside to running maps with 0 damage mods. Damage mods aren't necessarily inherently that much better than just like, I don't know, 40% monster life, which is much, much, much safer than, minus max, for example.
Yeah, and I don't know if you would agree, but like for example, I have a list of like things I reroll on pretty much every character, especially as long as I have enough currency. And the number 1 mod is monsters fire 2 additional projectiles.
Yeah, that. You go on.
Yeah, it kind of just breaks the game. A lot of things just aren't meant to have this. So even things like the cannibals from the beach can obviously just like completely one-shot you. Obviously there are things like, elemental or physical reflect that completely depends on your character. Yeah, I run reflect anyway. And then the other ones that are very dangerous that I will most of the time reroll would be crit and players have minus max resists.
Yeah. So yeah, obviously, the maps you choose to roll are going to they're gonna every damage mod you add is an extra layer of risk, right? So you just gotta look at it like that. One thing I do personally is I look at how much less effective life I'll have against a map, right? So if you view your effective life as 1, essentially, well, let's say you've got like, I don't know, 5k life, right? Or let's say 7k life actually. Let's say you got 7,000 life on a white map. Now, if you roll multi-proj, as is mentioned, the worst case scenario, and I always think about worst case scenarios when we're talking risk management. You have to, right? You have to think about worst case scenarios. Multi-proj can add 200% more damage to a monster's attack, right? So you got to think of it as you're tanking a monster's ability with effectively 3 times less life. And it's like, would you be running this map, this white map, with 2.3k life? No, of course.
Yeah.
Well, 2.4k life. Like, no, of course not. Like running a red tier map with 2k life is stupid. So when you look at it from that point of view, you realize like how rippy map mods can really be, right?
And
so that's
one thing to remember on hardcore is that sometimes, just not even always through fault of your own, you're just gonna die. Sometimes the perfect storm is gonna line up, and also sometimes you maybe glance away for a second and show a quick, probably my favorite death here, which I think was hilarious. You can see like the heralds are spawning here. I get pulled back in, and obviously don't get a chance to move or react. But yeah, sometimes you just die.
Yeah.
It's great.
Yeah. Not every death is fair in PoE, that's for sure.
Yeah. The first thing I scream is, "That's so unfair!"
Mm-hmm.
Oh.
Speaking of, and a lot of people said this about that clip, you can just log out, obviously, before you die. You had like 0.00001 second there to react, so you could have technically logged out. Now, whether or not you choose to log out, obviously, it's a big topic for debate and all that kind of stuff, yada, yada, yada. Obviously, if you've got a Logout Macro, it's totally fine to use it. It is going to keep you alive, assuming you don't have, net issues with packet loss. It's up to you whether or not you want to use it, but depends if again, it goes back to the goals section of the talk. Like, are you playing hardcore to survive? Are you playing hardcore for the thrill of death? Depending on what your goals are and how you want to play, depends on whether or not you want to log out, but it is, I mean, it is something that will keep your hardcore character alive. So it is something to think about whether or not you want to play with or without logging out. But yeah, like I said, if you want to keep your hardcore character alive, it's a big part of hardcore. It will allow you, the big reason I enjoy playing with it is because it allows you to do riskier content. When you do Uber Elder and your character is shit, you can actually pull off a hardcore Uber Elder kill just by logging out when your character's about to die because your character's shit, right? And it'll allow you to actually go into the fight and have a go. Even if you fail the fight, you brick the fight. There's too much poop puddles everywhere. Without being able to log, you would not have been able to go in there at all. So it totally depends on your goals and what kind of hardcore experience you want to have.
Yeah, that's true.
All right. Moving on. Last slide.
Oof.
All right, crafting. Now, obviously, I imagine a few talks have already discussed this, but specifically talking about SSF. Something cool about SSF that I like is that the currency is there to be used, right? There's no point hoarding it. It's ideally every single league you end in SSF, you'll have 0 currency because it's there to be used, right? There's no point hoarding it, right? You're not trading it away to anybody else. It's there to be used. So this means you can, as we saw in the beginning of the tour, you can totally slam like random rare items with exalts. That's totally something you can do, which is really enjoyable. It's enjoyable not thinking of an exalt as 200 chaos orbs.
Yeah.
Or 70 chaos orbs. You can just use the exalt if you need to. So you can exalt jewels and whatnot. So yeah, using your currency efficiently means, well, for starters, using it, like I said, it's there to be used. But it also means things that are hard to farm that you're going to need a lot of, you need to be very mindful of how you use it. So alterations, as an example, are precious. Very, very, very,
Very
very precious.
precious, especially now.
Yeah, yeah. Alteration crafting is, for the most part, endgame crafting in PoE. I should almost have the images reversed, because most endgame gear in SSF post-harvest will be alt-rolled, regold, multi-modded gear. So just 3 stat rares that have been multi-modded. So most of the hard part about that is alt-rolling it. So, yeah.
I'm very tempted after this to just crowdfund a divination card for alts.
Yeah, no, ults are key. So usually what I'll have to do is roll the character designed to... Well, this guy, actually, mentioning filters here, I'll have a filter set up to pick up all rares, vendoring all the rares. So I'll use all 6 portals in the map, vendor all the rares in the map, and just zoom through low tier maps just for alt farming. Doing this, you can get maybe like 200 alts an hour if you're like absolutely blasting with like magic find gear and everything. So yeah. But yeah, generally speaking, your gear is going to be very, very basic, like I said in SSF at the beginning. Depending, I would say it takes over 100 hours before you really get to do fun crafting in SSF. You know, like the big crafting. But even the basic stuff and just slamming random gear, that can be done before that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And also, like, figuring out how to use the league mechanic. Like, normally, like, you're not, like, every league, you're not going to be playing, like, standard, right? You are going to have something. The league mechanic does usually add, like, quite a lot of power creep in a positive way. So we obviously don't know what that is, if they've taken any form of deterministic crafting at all. We doubt it. So it might just be that a lot more stuff drops. Obviously, we have, like, the replicas and things like that coming up. But yeah, crafting seems like it's just going to be very, very RNG in the upcoming league.
Yeah. I mean, we can talk about the league mechanic a bit more because, obviously, well, I guess we have talked about it a bit at the start of the league. League mechanic in SSF Hardcore is, obviously, it can be extremely rippy. You know, you're stepping into the unknown. You don't know what the balance is like. You know, not sure what the risks are to identify. So it's obviously very risky.
A lot of the time, I feel like the league mechanic is like fine to do fairly early on. Obviously, some exceptions. There's like, for example, betrayal was insane. As soon as you encounter them, it's like time to die. With intervention literally following you until you die. But yeah, like for example, harvest was pretty easy. Legion wasn't too bad early on, and then just started getting like yellow maps started getting very, very dangerous. But yeah, most mechanics are fine to do until yellow or red maps without too much risk. But obviously, it's very, very individual per league. Metamorph as well had just so many things that could destroy you.
Yeah. There are certain leagues. So the league mechanic is a big part of what you're able to achieve in SSF. So talking about Legion, for example, a lot of league mechanics are really, really, really good for SSF. They are a major source of currency, a major source of loot. That kind of determines how much fun you're going to have that league in SSF in a way. Like Harvest, for example, was pretty ludicrous for SSF because you were able to craft pretty much best in slot gear in solo self-found, which is something we've never had before. But yeah, it is worth keeping an eye on Heist, just because of the impact it does have in SSF. You know, without a league mechanic, you struggle a lot. So a good league mechanic makes all the difference in the world. So we won't know, obviously, how good it is for SSF till the league comes out, but you know.
Yeah,
hoping.
and that is one nice thing about like having streams on in the background or stuff, especially if you're watching like people like Tai and whatever that are actually speedrunning and will maybe get to the point where they are exploring the league mechanic in like maps or something early. So you can see if people are dying, paying a little bit attention to like rip clips and stuff, and going like, well, I guess I'll avoid that, or I'm not doing the league mechanic. You do learn a lot from watching other people die.
Yeah, big true. All right, well, I did not prepare as much as Tie Killer here, so I guess we're going to
Well,
talk a bit more, just impromptu, I guess.
yeah, I mean, a lot of this we can cover just by talking.
Yeah.
Let's see. Let me just close this down. That was a really good presentation, though. Very, very fun. A lot of comedy. I like it.
Yeah. I tried. It was hard to follow Tai Killer's presentation. It was
Here,
very hard.
let's just get a clap, an easy clap in chat for the presentation part. It was really good. Thanks so much, Steelmage. We will be continuing like talking about Soul Self-Fund and how to survive. How do you like balance going for like more advanced damage mitigations? Like for example, you go for the Divine Flesh or Zibakwa Timeless Rule very, very, very often.
Well, so that's difficult because that's a gearing question, right? So if you put enough time into solo self-found, you can pull off things like Zibakwa, but that takes a long time to pull off well. It takes a long time to pull off well. I mean, I guess that's the cool thing. If you don't die and you invest enough time into a character, you can make them damn well near unkillable, and Zibakwa's one of the ways you do that, right?
Yeah. For those of you who don't know what Zibakwa is, it's a timeless jewel that does 50% of your elemental damage taken as chaos. And I did cover it and talk about it in the multi-layer defense things, but it basically helps a lot, especially against monsters that do penetration like the Shaper, because converted damage doesn't penetrate. So we do cover that more there.
Yeah. Another big thing, actually, I guess, is block, right? Which very well may be nerfed tomorrow. Who knows?
Probably. At least glancing
probably.
blows. Surely.
Yeah.
I would
block
nerf
is
it.
block is one of the more accessible forms of defense you can get in SSF, thanks to like you said, glancing blows and certain ascendancies, which grant access to it.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it's insane, and it like works so good with other defenses. And like Steel said earlier in the session as well, Flasks is always the thing where I see new players fuck up the most. I used to do a series called the Sunday Roast, and every time where I was doing build reviews, I would see new players have like 3 life flasks, 1 quicksilver, and a mana flask or something. Like very often I would say see new players skimping out on not having a granite flask, not having a jade flask, and things like that. So definitely not something to skimp out on. A granite flask, especially early on or even to like tier 10 maps, makes you virtually immortal to white monsters attacking you while that is up.
Yeah. No, I mean, like, a lot of builds, when they first enter maps, they have no survivability, except for their flasks. So that's why I put it on there, because if you're entering maps for your first time in SSF, having well-rolled flasks is the difference between dying and surviving.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And another reason, or another example of how it like matters a shit ton, is I didn't realize that so many players don't focus on jewels and don't focus on flasks for a while, until I think I started doing Essence Train Trickster guides, and I had so many people go like, "Ziz, your guide is shit. This build has no survival." And I'd be like, "Wait, what do you mean? Trickster is like it's like the defense ascendancy. It's like tankier than anything." So I would be like, wait, we can fix this. I would open their profile and they didn't have a Jade Flask. And even though I did have a Jade Flask in the build and recommended that, I hadn't put like flashing lights around and go like, use a Jade Flask, right? And then in every video since, I'm like, use a Jade Flask on every Trickster build. And I haven't had more complaints about that. Because the people that started like switching and put that on, they were like, oh, I'm not getting hit anymore. That's just because I have Trickster works and it recovers energy shield based on your evasion. So on top of barely being hit, you're also giving yourself a huge boost in energy shield whenever you do get hit. So very, very important for several things like that. And Jade is actually good on every build.
Yeah, I'm sure you would have talked about it a lot in layered defenses, about how adding evasion on top of damage reduction is like pretty nutty.
Yeah, it's insane. And then you have like Basalt Flask, which is fairly important too against like slams. Sometimes people will switch that out for like Shaper if they want to face tank the slam and things like that. But obviously a Granite Flask doesn't do anything against big hits.
Yeah. Oh yeah, I guess just off the top of my head, just thinking of topics to talk about. Over leveling is actually something I highly recommend.
Yes.
So I was mentioning this during before Tai Killer's presentation. So he mentions when you're racing, you're trying to go faster, you're trying to speed run a bit. If you wanting to learn how to speed run, keeping below the zone level is extremely important, right? You want to make sure you're going fast enough that you're not over leveling. Over leveling is going to cause your times to go to go poorly, right? But I recommend the opposite. Obviously, if you're just trying to survive, surviving is the best thing you can do for time. Dying is the worst thing you can do. So I always recommend over leveling. I tend to over level at league stat a lot because it's just not worth dying in the first day of the league.
Yeah.
So obviously there are a few key zones you can farm here. I always say whenever I get to the Chamber of Innocence at league start, welcome to my crib. Welcome to my new home, because I tend to farm Chamber of Innocence for a very long time, and that's just because it sets you up res wise for post Katava. It gets you if you hit like 2k life, then you're gonna survive all the way up until Blood Aqueducts, and you can do the same thing in Blood Aqueducts. And I always recommend over leveling unless you're going for like literal rank 1, for whatever reason, rank 1 day 1. Then I always recommend over leveling.
Yeah, like you'll see a lot of people rushing ahead. A lot of people will be skipping sometimes their second ascendancy or even first ascendancy. They'll be skipping skill points, and a lot of that is just to get name in lights, which is fun. Don't get me wrong, it is great, but it's not always worth it in the long run. You end up losing time later. And it's also very important to remember that overleveling is insanely powerful when you are playing a spell build. Because if you're playing a melee build, and we've covered this a little bit before, going from Reeve level 19 to 20 is 1.1% more damage. However, going from Firestorm, for example, level 19 to 20, it's like 15 or 17% more damage. And you do get, especially at lower levels, probably even more. It might be like 20 or 25% per level. So you'll actually, even if you have garbage gear, you'll notice like a huge leap in your damage. So like Steelmage said, if you're over leveling in Chamber of Innocence, you might be getting 2 levels to your main skill gem support. So obviously, like not counting the actual skill points, you might be getting 30 or 40% more damage there. Throw in the skill points, and you might have increased your damage by 50 or 60%. Plus, you have more time there to get some gear upgrades. So just by that little, like spending like 10-20 minutes in one zone over leveling, you might notice basically close to doubling your damage, which is huge.
Yeah. No, I mean, the real trick to hardcore and surviving is over gear, over level. Like,
yeah,
there's no point in feeling weak. If your character ever feels weak, that's probably not a good thing, right? I mean, even like the races, the characters have to feel a certain level of power, otherwise they're gonna struggle a lot.
Yeah.
So yeah, the name of the game is over leveled, over geared.
And mobility is very, very important for survival. That's why Quartz Flask is probably the most underrated flask, I would say. Because just being able to like go straight through enemies and not get caught in anything, you don't like get stuck on something and have like 10 monsters hit you, that is very big. Part of why Leap Slam can actually be pretty deadly, because the way Leap Slam goes, you land in the middle of the pack and then they will all hit you. So it's pretty easy to find like rip clips of people leap slamming in and getting 1 shot or 30 shot.
Yeah. All right. Somebody mentioned in chat, by the way, that if Quinn overlevels and overgears, how does he die? Well, he actually only had 1 death last league before he basically, moved on. We'll leave it at that. Yeah, we'll leave it at that. The day of the 3 rips, we won't talk about that. But before that, he didn't actually have more than 1 death. So
I like how you called it moved on.
Yeah. That's totally how that went down. That's totally how that went down.
And as much as I think my favorite thing in life is shitting on Quinn, but as much as people shit on Quinn, he hasn't played Path of Exile that long, and he does pretty well, and is one hell of an entertainer.
Yeah, something actually to learn from Quinn. What he did, and I think you mentioned this earlier, but what he did was he wrote down. He spent some time identifying risks and how to counter them. So he had like his little notepad with don't do Metamorph ever, because Metamorph's completely effed, right?
Yeah.
But basically he learned what killed him. He took down notes, realized this is bad, this is bad, this is bad, this is bad, this is bad. Stop doing those things, and because of that risk assessment, he has died significantly less and done significantly better since doing that. So that's something everyone can do. You know, if you do die, you know, you can learn from those deaths.
Yeah. And having something like, if you're not a streamer, having something like shadow play or something running so that you can make a clip of your death and being able to examine that is actually very important, or can be useful, because sometimes when you die in Path of Exile, you might not have been paying attention, or it might just have been happening really fast, and you can very easily go like, what the fuck killed me? And you'll see like experienced racers will actually have to review their death 3 or 4 times but before they're like, oh shit, I didn't see that.
Yes.
So yeah.
Yeah, so what happens there typically, and I guess I should talk about this as well. So the situations you walk into where you're already dead, essentially. You're already dead. That you've already made the mistake that's caused your character to die. And then there's obviously situations where you start taking damage, and that's when you start dying. But a lot of situations in PoE, you're already dead before you can do anything because you've already made the mistake, essentially.
Yeah.
An example of that is when Havoc popped Legion, and he opened too many of the spear throwers in the temple.
Yeah.
In the gauntlet.
Maybe we can get
and
that
so,
rip somewhere. Hold on, I'll see if I can grab it.
Yeah. So in that rip clip, essentially, the moment he popped the rare and chose to fight the Legion, he was already dead. He was already dead, basically. And then still in the corner. Yeah, because it overlaps against the wall. But the mistake was not necessarily fighting it near the wall. The mistake was kind of already choosing to do such a high tier rippy temple with multiple damage mods and a Legion. Like, the mistake was popping the Legion with the spear throwers, essentially.
Yeah. So here you see a spear thrower. Here, 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 here. And he's opening all of them. And the thing is, like, obviously this is like different in racing, but whenever you're playing for long and stuff like that, even if you're playing for 12 hours or 8 hours, it's very, very easy to not have like best judgment or perfect judgment all the time. And I think the thing about survival and living in Path of Exile is it only takes like 0.5 of a second of fucking up and everything is gone.
Yeah. So I think even if you play the clip, he even types in chat, shouldn't have opened that Legion. Because yeah, he knew the mistake. He made the wrong judgment call, and that's all it takes.
My fault. Yep.
Yeah.
Knew I shouldn't have done that. Yeah.
Yeah. So that happened because not because he did the Legion, but because he did the Legion with those mods. So he had multiple damage mods on that temple.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And like the thing is, like you'll see like professional Path of Exile players on Reddit will generally be roasting Path of Exile streamers quite a lot. And generally the takeaway there is like hindsight is 20/20. Whenever you're reviewing something afterwards, it's very, very easy to see what was wrong afterwards. Whereas, during one session of playing, you might have hundreds of things that if you played it slightly differently, you would have died. So it's very easy to die in Path of Exile. That's why you'll see very few players, streamers and stuff. You'll see very few people actually roasting each other and saying that was a bad death, because they are so easy. They are so easy to fuck up.
Yeah.
Sometimes
all it takes is getting hit.
Sometimes Drux just fists you.
Yeah, well, I now know I shouldn't take a totem into rocks because him targeting the totem is what killed me. So I learned a valuable lesson there.
Do we have a link to that one? Because you don't die a lot. So
no. That one's we don't have a link to that one. There's no link to that one. Nothing happened.
Do you not upload your rips to YouTube?
No.
No?
I don't upload anything to YouTube. I'm a terrible streamer.
You're a very good streamer. Maybe someone can find it and link it in chat. And
I actually think it got DMCA killed.
Oh, it got deleted. That's so sad. But yeah, basically, there's just like even the best of us can sometimes die to fucking up, and it only takes like very, very little time.
Yeah. But
yeah, trying to think if there's anything else we should cover.
Did we talk about logging out? Logging out on damage taken? That's great.
Yeah, you did cover
Something-
logging out a bit.
Yeah.
I actually used to be super against logging out.
Oh, yeah, I guess I'll just talk more about risk assessment. Like I mentioned earlier, I always look at the worst case scenario for something. That does tend to keep you alive, because if the worst case scenario doesn't kill you, then you can't die. You're literally immortal.
Mhm.
So, as an example of this, take a fully geared level 100 character with, like 10k ES or 12k ES or whatever, or, 8k life. Take it to Twilight Strand, worst case scenario, can never kill you in Twilight Strand. Apply that logic to the rest of the game, and, your survivability will improve. Because if your worst case scenario is, if I get hit here, well, actually, I think Rise QT might have taught me this, actually. I think it was Rise, actually. He mentioned if you do the same thing 1,000 times, and on the 1,000th time you die, you shouldn't do it. Because, I use another analogy for this. It's like playing Russian roulette and then pulling the trigger 6 times.
That's true.
Because if you do the same rippy thing over and over and over, eventually, bad things eventually gonna rip. So that's kind of the way I look at risk assessment in hardcore. If you do something super sketchy over and over and over again, like if you do super rippy 8 mod maps that are low chance of killing you, let's say there's a 1% chance that an 8 mod rippy corrupted map's gonna kill you. You do that 100 times, you're dead, right? No, I mean, not obviously that's not how statistics work, but you get the idea, right?
That's true.
Wait, did somebody actually link my rip somehow?
Oh, maybe.
Oh my god.
Oh my god, we found it. One sec.
That's
so-
muted, obviously, but
Steelmage doesn't die a lot. Actually, I think it is not muted. It's not written. Steelmage does not die a lot, but we can explain the death here. So he actually gets killed because of his totem. It's actually very funny because I've personally never died to Drox, so it's something that he's died to that I haven't, which is a small personal victory for me. But yeah, you can see that he has the Ancestral War Chief here and is slamming around. And then his like Weight of Law actually targets not him, but the totem. So normally, if the totem wasn't here, the fist would be over here, and he would have been safe. But seeing as it lands straight on him, he dies. Because that thing does an insane amount of damage.
yeah. I think I had VMS and I could have popped it and it might have saved me, but I thought, I thought I was safe, didn't I?
Yeah.
Oh no, I didn't have VMS. No, it's okay. There's nothing that could have saved me other than being good at the game. Okay, that's good.
Yeah. No, it does so much damage. Like some of the boss slams are insane. And actually let's talk about that. What about guard skills and how do you use them?
Oh yeah, actually I could go on a little rant. You want me to go on a rant?
Yeah.
So obviously prior to the Val Molten Shell change, you could use custom damage taken guard skill and Val Molten Shell together. It would be separate. So you could use custom damage taken Steel Skin and Val Molten Shell together, right? And they didn't mess with each other. And so I always recommended, especially in the guides that I did for your YouTube as well,
Yeah.
that on your YouTube, I used to always recommend and talk about how you can run custom damage taken, Steel Skin, increased duration, Val Molten Shell. And so the idea is you have a reactive source of damage mitigation, that's custom damage taken Steel Skin, and you have a proactive source of damage mitigation, which is Val Molten Shell. Now, because this has been nerfed, if you do this now, Steel Skin will unfortunately override. I think it will anyway. It should override Val Molten Shell, unfortunately. So this obviously is weaker. So I've just switched to using custom damage taken Val Molten Shell. But I've had a lot of questions like, why are you using custom damage taken Val Molten Shell? Doesn't Molten Shell override it? And yes, it does. But like I said, custom damage taken Molten Shell is reactive, and self-cast Val Molten Shell is proactive. And that's still true, even if it is getting overridden, which sucks. But even if it is getting overridden, it's still proactive and it's still worth using, in my opinion. Because if you don't run a custom damage taken, you lose your reactive source of damage mitigation. That's just gone. So if you take damage and you don't react, you have nothing, right? And if you don't run Val Molten Shell, if you just run Cast Never Taken Molten Shell, then you no longer have a source of proactive mitigation. So if you tank like a Shaper Slam or a Legion Spear, you have nothing to pop before you tank it. You just gotta tank it and you hope you don't die, I guess.
And
so that's why I like having it, even though it's not perfect.
It's worth mentioning as well that you can put a guard skill or enduring cry on left mouse button, and even though it's normally used for move only, it won't actually it'll still work as a move key. So enduring cry looks this smooth just because I have call to arms and they have war cries are now instant, but you can put like molten shell, enduring cry, immortal call, steel skin on mouse button what. And that will like just add like defense. So you should normally have something on mouse button 1 to autocast.
Yeah. The only reason, so obviously if you've got Enduring Cry, you can't use 2 left click abilities as far as I'm aware, right?
Yeah.
So in that case, Cast Never Taken's the play for me there. But if you do have a left click guard skill, the only downside there, if you're wanting to use Val Molten Shell as well, so that you're still losing that reactive form of defense mitigation. It's more proactive then, and you have less control over it because it's just being used on left click. So I still kind of prefer the Cast Never Taken, but that does work. That does work well. So,
but yeah, that was I think we've like covered pretty much everything, so we could like end it here, take a break, and then we're doing a Q&A afterwards. I also decided I'm gonna see about like doing a quick, see if we can community raise the divination card for alterations. It's like 660, and then I already have one as well, so I'll do an impulsive div card and an alteration div card if we hit that.
cool.
Yeah, but first of all, can I get a massive thank you to Steelmage for taking time out of his day, making that lovely presentation, and staying up for us. I know it's slightly late for you, and joining us here for a lesson. Hopefully you'll return as a professor for the next semester as well.
Hopefully a little more prepared. I'll take some notes from Tight Killer's presentation.
Yeah, that
Pretty good.
was actually really good. I'm going to be increasing mine as well because of that. And thank you to chat for joining us. But yeah, make sure you go follow, subscribe, and stalk Steelmage's social media, everything. Definitely deserves a lot of support. A awesome community member. If you're not familiar with him, very fun to follow at League Start and just in general.
Yeah, thanks, Ziz. And thanks, Ziz Chant. Feels good, man.
But yeah, that was a very good episode. So we'll end it there. Hope you guys on YouTube that are watching enjoyed it. So thanks for watching. Try to die less than I do. You can wave at the camera, Steelmage.
All right. Bye, Chant.